Okay, so for the last couple of months, we have been here in Bali and we moved into our villa, Villa Martini, and I've been getting a lot of questions. What's it like building in Bali? How much does your villa cost? Was it a headache to get everything built? And so I wanted to create a video on this. And to start this video, the first thing that I want to share is kind of like why Bali? And this is actually a little bit of a vulnerable share. And to be perfectly honest, it feels like a full circle moment because Bali was actually the first place that Dom and I traveled to when we first started our online company. And so we started this online company in the Philippines. We started it from a computer, an internet cafe in the Philippines. And we were just like, we're going to start an online business so we can travel the world. And at that time, we didn't even have a computer. Like it was that level of delusion that we were just like, yep, we're going to do this. And so we started it in the Philippines. And then we were like, okay, it's time. We're going to go traveling and we're going to be working online and working on the business. And so Bali was the first place that we have ever traveled to together with the company. And I remember coming here, and at that time, I was probably down to my last $1,800, $1,800 in my bank. And we were just like, this business has to work. This online business has to work. There's no other option, right? And so at that time, we were staying in a homestay in Canggu. And this was like 11 years ago. Canggu wasn't as busy, wasn't as crazy yet. And we were staying in a homestay for, I think it was like $15 a night. It didn't have a shower. We had a bucket shower, and that's what we did. We stayed in Indonesia. We were working on the blog. We were working on the business. We traveled all over. But to be able to come back here and build our first home feels like a full circle moment. Now, we built our villa in Uluwatu, which, if you don't know where it is, it's just at the bottom end, and it's a lot more quiet compared to Canggu, compared to Ubud. It's getting busy, but busy is good for for the villa, for villa rentals, because we built this villa for two reasons. One is so that we have a base whenever we're in this side of the world, but the second is so we have rental income. One of the things is for you to actually stay wealthy and for you to actually make your money working for you, you need to make sure that you are making investments where your money is constantly compounding. And so this place was that for us. And so I wanted to create a video to talk about the entire process, the costs, a few of the questions that people have been sending to us. So before I get started, I wanted to show you exactly the villa. And so I'm going to drop to a clip where I walk you through Villa Martini. I walk you through the different features of the house, and I'm going to go straight into what it actually took to build this place straight after. Okay, welcome to our villa. I wanted to do a YouTube video, do kind of like an MTV Cribs style, which I definitely know that I am showing my age if you know what MTV Cribs is like. Welcome to Villa Martini. So let me show you around. So we really wanted to make sure that we had a big outdoor space, and we have the pool over there. We have this outdoor shower area, which I actually really love. We hand selected the tiles, and we're going for like the black and white retro theme. Obviously with the name Martini, we thought that would be quite fun. We have a ton of greenery outdoors, and we had the option to actually put a third bedroom in here, but we decided to just keep it as a barbecue area, and we're so happy that we did, because I think this just adds to the overall appeal of the space. Imagine having this area where you can grill, even outdoor dining, and lots of cool plants. So we're actually super happy that we didn't turn that into a bedroom. And then as far as ROIs go for property here in Bali, from what we've heard from the people that we've spoken to, sounds like 2-bedroom is the sweet spot. And so a lot of 3-bedroom homes, they get rented out, but
I don't necessarily think it adds a ton to the rental because most people who come here are either couples and sometimes also friends, but couples or families. So this is the living room. So what we did is we kind of went with the traditional Mediterranean, but we added our own spin to it. And so as you can see, it's super bright. We have a lot of the black and white decorations there. This is the dining. I love, 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 love the garden over there. We have a little bar cart. And between the two, you just feel like you have so much natural light and so much space, which we are loving. This is the dining area. And then obviously we have the kitchen over here. So with the kitchen, we're actually super happy with this because it looks very clean, very modern, and you can cook with that view. To be perfectly honest, not a lot of people cook while they're in Bali, especially if you're here on holidays, but for us, when we are here, it's nice to have like a cool kitchen that's overlooking the area. All of these open up, so like over the weekend, Tom and I had a barbecue and all the doors were open. We could jump straight to the pool. That opens up as well. And so there's a lot of natural light, which we just absolutely love. And then over here is the powder room. We have a powder room over there. And here, I think Tom's here working right now. Hi.
Hi.
I'm just giving everyone a room tour.
Oh, caught me with my geeky glasses on.
So this is the other bedroom, and it's really cool. Ooh, it's really cool because again it has its own mini garden over there, and we added a desk area so people can work as well if you're working online like we are. So that's actually very rare here in Bali. And here's the bathroom area. As you can see, we have a lot of like cool art, and each bathroom has its own tub. As you're looking out to your own private garden again. Super spacious, tons of natural light. Hey. Next, we'll go up. This is where master bedroom is. So what I like about this is even though you are downstairs, it feels like you have your own separate area here, which is great. And so here's the master bathroom. So that when that opens up, there's actually a lot of greenery there. And then we have these cool black tiles that we chose, and so everything's really modern. Tons of closet space. Another desk area here. And this is the bedroom. So we love this part. So we actually got them to add that. So we added this little nook there. And that's just like a reading nook. Plus we have storage spaces over there. But I think our favorite feature is this. So we actually added this balcony area. It wasn't part of the original plans because it's so nice to sit there, have a coffee in the morning or even during sunset and just watch the sunset from there with a mocktail. That's actually super, super cool. Again, really bright, clean. Another desk there, which is perfect. Let me go back down to the living room. One of the things that made us fall in love with this part of Bali is literally it's close, it's spread out, that it doesn't feel like it's suffocating, it doesn't feel like everything's tight. Like Bingin can get a little bit busy, but everything else feels like it's pretty spread out, which we really like. Show you around the living room. This is the most comfortable couch, by the way. TV. The lighting here is really cool. We had cool lights installed in all of those. And we have a speaker over there that you can connect to. Reading nook. There you go. Welcome to Villa Martini.
Okay, so first things first, when you are deciding to build a villa here in Bali, the first thing that I would do is make sure that you are going with a very reputable development company. Now, when Tom and I purchased this villa, we were a little bit crazy because we were halfway around the world. We weren't even in Bali. We were in Mexico at that time, and it felt like everything just lined up, and we wired a bunch of money to this development company and to this guy. And we're like, I hope you build us a villa. Now, I don't recommend doing that, but the reason why we went with this development company is because we had a friend who we knew who had used him and has probably bought two villas from them already, from this company. And so knowing this, we checked out the company, we did our due diligence, we researched them, and they had great properties, great reviews. Our friend was really happy with the two properties that he purchased from them. And so we were like, okay, let's do it. Now, at that time, we had sold our second company and everything just fell into place. We literally, and this is a side tangent, but this is one of the reasons why I love going to like retreats, in-person meetups, to conferences, is because you just never know the type of connections that you would make. And so we ended up going to this one retreat. It's a men's mastermind group. It's in Tom's friends. And we went to this retreat. And at that time, we weren't even thinking of selling our business. And he was in the sauna with this one guy. And this guy was just like, yeah, you should sell a company. And Tom was just like, yeah. And he goes, just by chance, he goes, do you know anyone? And this guy was just like, yeah, I'll introduce you to this guy. And so from that point to 6 weeks, we had sold the company. And so it was so crazy. Everything felt like it was like divine timing. And so one of the reasons why we were like, okay, let's invest in this property, because again, similar to that, it kind of just fell in our laps and the opportunity was there. And Tom and I, think, are very good at like following these hunches. And so we researched the company and we really made sure that the terms were favorable. And so I have a piece of paper here that I'm going to be looking at, and I wrote a couple of things down. So the first thing is, you need to make sure that the company that you are going with, the development company, has a good track record. There are development companies who do not end up finishing your project and who have essentially a lot of like half-built places that they don't finish. And so you need to make sure that the company is reputable. They have a good track record, meaning they've already finished a couple of projects, and the quality of these projects are also really high. We went with this company as well because on the contract, they had a lot of great terms. So first of all, there was a great warranty scheme. So for 5 years, everything that is inside the villa, they will extend a warranty. And so this means like the tables, the furnishings, because this villa came fully furnished. I chose all the furnitures, and I'm actually going to show you all the difference between the very first villa that they showed us to how it ended up now, which you've seen. And so I'm so excited to like show you the old ones because they look nothing compared to what they are right now. And so the first thing is the warranty. They have a 5-year warranty on all the furnishings and then 10 years on the actual structure, which is really good. Now, when it comes to owning property in Bali, you cannot actually own a property as a foreigner. And so what you do is you lease the land from the locals. You lease the land, and usually you have like 24 years, and then you have the option to extend it for another 25. Now, usually by like year 3 or year 4, they already give you the option to extend. And so you're going to be having the property for 50 years or more than that, right? And so even though you don't have the right to actually own it, I kind of like this because it protects the locals and it avoids things like, schemes like Hawaii, where majority of the land has been brought up by foreigners. And so here the locals still own the land and you lease it for them. Now, Tom and I started an Indonesian corporation in order to properly do everything here. Now, another thing that we really like about this developmental company is they handle everything. So when we are gone, when we are not here, they will also manage the villa for us. They manage the housekeeping. We have an awesome staff who they come, they clean the villa. We have a pool guy, a gardener. And so a lot of these things is added complexity of being a homeowner, which we're so happy that we don't have to handle. This was one of the things where when Tom and I realized, they're like, oh, okay, there's a lot of things that we really can't foresee, but our intention is to be owning multiple properties around the world. And so we were just like, how do we create a system for it? And at the same time, it's like, you need to make sure that you have a team to help you, a team to assist in the day-to-day logistics of running a villa. And so for us, we are going to be living here whenever we are here. And on the months that we aren't, we're going to be renting it out so that we do have rental income coming in. Now, they also gave us kind of a projected ROI of houses that are similar to this. And so for us, we looked at other 2-bedroom villas. They showed us the books of what those are generating, and we really liked it. It was generating anywhere from 12 to 14% ROI. You get your money back after like 6 years or 7 years. And so it's a great way to get your money working for you. Obviously for us, this is not going to be our primary income because we run our companies and our businesses, but it is great to have, and we wouldn't turn down the opportunity to rent it out when we are not here. That's another thing. It's like you need to make sure that your finances are actually generating an income for you, even when you're not, especially when you're not living here. Payment, and also small things like the structure, right? So here in Bali, there is no such thing as a mortgage. And so unlike the US or the UK, you can't necessarily just go to a bank and say, hey, can I get a loan so I can buy this? And I'm only going to pay a small percentage. As foreigners, everything that you buy, you have to pay for in cash, essentially. And so it is a lump sum of cash. And although having said that, there are payment schemes, but you still need to make sure that you have the cash ready at any point. And so for us, we decided to invest in this, and then we set aside a chunk of our money, and we were like, okay, we're investing in this. We're not touching this money, even though the payment scheme was staggered. So how it looked like was there was a 1% reservation fee. So if you wanted to reserve the property and make sure that no one else was going to be getting it, we paid 1% of the total project price. The next is 9%, and that actually went into escrow. And so we did this when we were doing our due diligence, when we hired lawyers to check the property, to check the land titles, to check everything. And so we hired the lawyers to be able to do their own independent research on everything, because the company who we bought it for, the guy who we bought it for, they gave us, here are all the documents, double check it. And so we did, and then that 9% goes into the escrow. Once everything is cleared, then that money in the escrow is then given to them, and then a portion goes to the notary. Afterwards, you pay 50% of the total price, and that goes towards the land ownership. So that's the huge chunk there. It's 50% towards the land. And so that came shortly after we finished all the due diligence. So you need to make sure that you have about 60% ready. And then 40% of your cash will come upon completion of the different construction phases. Now, we were actually not very involved in the very beginning, and we were living halfway around the world. We were in Mexico. And so in the entire beginning process, we weren't really involved. And so we kind of just sent a bunch of money. And looking back now, I probably wouldn't do that. And I would be a little bit more hands-on and made sure that we were here, but it all worked out. And we're really happy with how everything turned out. Now, 20% of the next payment is contingent on 30% of the project being completed. So since we were in Mexico, they were sending us progress photos, but this villa was actually delayed from the contract itself said that it was going to take around 10 months, but it actually took, I think, a total of like 16 months. And that was because we had a really, really bad rainy season in Bali last year. And so everything was delayed. And so because of this, the villa, I think, was delayed by a total of, I'm saying, 7 to 8 months. And the reason why this kind of was okay for us as well is because on our contract, they were liable to pay us late fees. And so we gave them a grace period. We agreed on a leeway since we're like, okay, it was a natural disaster. There was really, really heavy rain last year. And so we gave them a leeway. And then after that point, they were paying us a monthly fee for every month that the villa wasn't renting. And this to us was very fair because if we were renting this out, then we were losing on monthly rental income. And it was actually really easy to negotiate with a company. And they were just like, yeah, this is fair. And so when it came to that, we were really happy. So if you are thinking of purchasing a villa in Bali, just make sure that it has those clauses. It has the warranties, it has the late fees. I think those are all really, really important. And when we first were reading the contract, we're like, oh, that's cool. But we didn't really think about how big those clauses were and how important they were until now. And we're seeing, oh, okay, that was really a good sign that the company was very reputable and they were willing to actually go the extra mile to make sure that we felt safe and secure. And they were great to work with at the end of the day. Yes, there were some kinks, but at the end of the day, it was really, really good. After that, 15% of the total price you need to pay again upon 60% of the completion of the villa. And then the last 5% was when everything was fully done. And so there's a tier in terms of how much you are paying, in terms of when you are paying this. And so it isn't as big of a lump sum that a lot of people think, but I would say you would probably need at least 60% of the cash ready within the first few months. And this is like pretty standard from what I've been seeing. Now, I also made sure that the villa was customizable because the very first designs, the very first renders that we saw, it looked very old school. And there is a reason because there was a man and he was supposed to make this his house. The guy who we bought it from, this was supposed to be his home. And so he's this young dude, bachelor. And so he designed this to be like a cool, modern bachelor pad and not necessarily like the light, bright villa that you see that it is now. And so I'm going to show you a couple of the renders so you can really see the difference between his design and how it turned out. Okay, so this is actually the photos of what we first saw when we bought the villa. And it looks completely different from what it is now. So that's the entrance. And like I said, it was a more masculine design. And so everything was like really, really quite dark. And so we kept the general structure of the villa, but we much prefer what we have now. So this is like the barbecue area, the decking, I don't know why it had that many surfboard racks, the pool. And they had this like wooden slats on the top part, which I really disliked. It felt like a bird cage. So that I wasn't happy with, and I really didn't like that. But we love the overall look. We love that it was 2 stories, since a lot of the villas here are kind of like a one floor plan. They all look very similar. And so we really put a lot of thought into how we wanted the villa to look. Even the landscaping, we chose everything. Let me actually refresh this. So let's go to the inside. Okay, so that's the pool area. The inside, as you can tell, it looks so different. So it had this like really dark ceilings. Instead, we put these like cool wooden beams in ours. The kitchen was this like dark gray granite-y, and even the table looked quite dark. So what we liked about this was we liked the overall layout of the space, but we really customized it a lot to make it ours. So we like the L couch, but here we preferred having the circular shelves there. We just thought it made it look a little bit cleaner. Everything was we had a lot of whites and then also gold fixtures. But the cool part with our villa is we added like the Art Deco style with like the black and whites that we have going on. This was the guest bedroom. They already had like a desk area built out, which was great. But again, we wanted everything brighter because, as you can tell, this looked really small. And we were like, if we wanted like a more modern tropical feel, then everything needed to change a little bit. The bathroom looked also gray. And then this was the master's bedroom. So that was the cupboard space, and then master's bedroom. Then we have this. And so the layout was very similar, but we changed a lot of the finishings. We changed the bed, we changed the desk area, the roof, especially that we changed. We took out the birdcage slats. And so there were a lot of like small tweaks, which I'm really happy that we ended up doing. This ended up being a desk, and then we ended up putting the reading nook here. And then we actually extended the balcony because we already had that space there. This is the powder room. And so this was the overall initial view that we got. But we also made sure that, okay, we like the bare bones of how everything looks, but we want to customize a lot of these things. And so in the initial meetings that we had with the developer, with the design team, with their architects, we asked how much customization could we actually do to the entire thing. And we were able to customize a lot, which I'm so happy about. And so after customizing everything, one of the biggest things that I really would urge everyone to do if you are thinking about building a villa in Bali is spend some time in some Airbnbs here in Bali. That's something that I wish we did because, again, we were halfway around the world when we did this. And so I kind of had a general idea of what I wanted, but I think it would have been so much better if I just kind of stayed in different Airbnbs and go, oh, I really like this table. I like this furniture. I like that rug, rather than kind of trying to imagine everything myself. Another thing is when the team sends you things like, here's the wood, here's this, ask for videos, because I realize a lot of the times there's a big team and there's multiple people. There's like contractors, there's the design team. And so we had this big incident where they had sent us the wood that they were going to use in all the cabinets. And on the photo, it did not look very dark. It looked very white. It looked light. And seeing that all the renders were like that, we're like, yeah, that's great. And then when Tom and I got here in January, all the cabinets were like this reddish tint. And we were just like, absolutely not. We were like, no, that is not what we agreed on. If you look at the renders, that is not what we see. That is not what we approved. And they're like, yeah, but we sent you a photo. And then I looked at the photo. I was like, yeah, but you can tell that it's not the same. I was like, look at the photo and look at what it is actually. And so they had to redo all the cabinets, redo all the furniture and strip them. And so that took longer. And so I would say make sure that you are here in Bali. If you can, ask about the material of everything. You know, this is our first build. This is our first property that we invested in. And so we weren't really sure about the materials, about the type of wood, like any of these things, right? And so knowing what we know now, we would probably be a lot more particular the next time we build a new property. We would choose all the wood, we would choose all the cabinets, everything. Overall, we're so happy with Villa Martini. We love how spacious it is. Yesterday, Tom and I had a barbecue and we were outside in the pool, we were playing music, and we were just like, wow. I was like, we built this. This is so freaking cool. And we're already seeing the bookings come in. And I think that's the coolest part. It's knowing that we have an asset that's generating money for us, even when we're not here. Um, in terms of, I'm trying to think of other things. I would definitely be here during the last part. I think the last part is the most important part because it's the finishings, right? And so when we first came here, Tom and I had no idea. And my dad is a contractor back in the Philippines. And so I flew him and my mom out here. And I'm so thankful that he was here because he showed us what to look out for. And so during the finishing stages, there's like a lot of small details, like the shadow lines, or you're like, this isn't painted properly, or that doesn't look like it's installed well. And so you have a lot of these small tweaks here and there, and you really have to work with a team. You have to work with a team. You have to be patient. You have to be very, very patient. But the great thing is the team was so willing to change things, to repair things. If we weren't happy with a particular tile or we saw that it already had a crack, they would send a team, they would change it. And so we were nitpicking everything because we wanted it to be good and really come out with really, really high quality. And so we made sure that we wanted to furnish it with high quality things because this is also our home. We're going to be living here, but at the same time, we're also renting it out. And so we want to make sure that everything is functional. Small things like testing out the internet. The internet in the second bedroom was a little wobbly. And so we decided that every time we would purchase a property, and this isn't going to be the first, we decided that we're going to live in that property for at least two months to stress test it, to make sure that everything is working according to plan, that there's going to always be small kinks. And in the first month, we were a little bit stressed and we're like, man, this is a lot of work. Like, this is a lot of work. But then Tom and I were like, you know what? We can't say this because we need to normalize this, because if we want to own multiple properties around the world, then we need to normalize being able to handle multiple things going wrong, assign it to someone, come back, give feedback. And so this is where you just need to expand your capacity. If you want to build in a property, if you want to build a property in a country that's not your own, you have to understand their culture. You have to understand how they work, how they speak. And so there was some adjustments, but overall, we were so happy with the team. Now, we're getting a lot of questions on the total price that we spent. So I think as a total, we spent 340,000 US dollars. And this is including all the add-ons that we decided to tack on. So we added a new balcony, we added the decking there, the outdoor furniture, we added the reading nook, we added like more paintings, more plants. And so there were a lot of add-ons that could have probably made the property a little bit cheaper, but we weren't necessarily going for cheap. And again, you want to make sure that you have at least 60% of that in cash ready to pay people. And then the others you kind of drip out. But to be honest, for us, we just set aside that amount of money, made sure that it was accessible at any point and we were touching it. It was just kind of earning interest in the bank. And then whenever the payment deadline would come, we would just send the funds. Now, another thing that I would make sure that you do is just understand kind of how things operate here in Bali and understand that there will be a lot of back and forth, but honestly, Indonesian people are so lovely that everyone has a smile on their face. And so we're so grateful that we had this experience. We're so grateful that we're about to launch, the socials of Villa Martini. We already have a couple of fun videos there. There's a team managing it. We're about to go and travel for 3 months. And during that time, it's going to be available for rent. And I'm so grateful that everything is fully managed by a team. There's people cleaning the house. They're managing the Airbnb rentals. They're doing everything, right? And so we get to, and it's also a team that we trust. We've been interacting with them for the last year and a few months, and everyone there is really, really kind and goes out of their way. So that's another thing. Uluwatu, we love Uluwatu. We love the area. It's beautiful. I feel like there's so many pockets that are still unexplored, although it's going crazy because there is a lot of money that is pouring into Uluwatu. There's a lot of buildings everywhere. And so it's one of those things that it's going through a growth spurt, but I generally love this place. I love this area. I'm so happy that we have this now as a base. We're going to be spending a lot of time here because honestly, just like being surrounded by a ton of greenery, having a ton of beaches accessible, the gyms are amazing, people are great. And I'm so happy that we decided to take the plunge and jump in and invest here in Bali. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer them.